Welcome to Couples Talk. This evening we have a wonderful topic. We all have faults in our marriage. Every one of us have issues. I know I have some issues, and we want to discuss how do we approach some of these issues. And the topic by itself kind of tells you everything you need to know. We're saying work on you first. And how does this approach really helps you to deal with the faults of your spouse? It sounds a bit contradictory because you're identifying something that you see in your spouse that is an issue. It's not the way you think this should be done, but we're telling you to work on you first. And we want to take the next couple minutes or so to discuss this approach and how do you deal with your faults. Charlene, when you think about faults of your spouse, what comes to mind?
I think about how the person involved thinks that they're perfect, and then they think they need to fix this person they're married to. So, if I fix this person, then everything is going to be fine in the relationship. That's usually the typical discussion, right? They're the problem, not me.
Yeah. And I mean, especially from a man's perspective, we are fixers by nature. We tinker with things. I could recall taking apart a radio because, I want to know where is the little man inside this radio coming from? How is he actually able to speak about these things? I would have dismantled the radio in pieces trying to figure out how this works. And you could imagine I would have tried to even dismantle my marriage to try to figure out how to make this work. So I want to start with telling you a story that really brought this home to me. Before we got married, and we had a few sessions, not as much sessions I really think we probably should have had in hindsight, but if I actually had followed this one advice that I got from Pastor Edwards at the time, and he took us to a nice beach front area and he was giving us, some of the best advice he could have given us in the time that he had with us. And one of the things he had told me is accept this version of Charlene that you are getting as the best version you would ever get. And if you get more, consider it a bonus. And it just sounded like something nice he was saying. I said, okay, yeah, sounds good. All right. And by the time I go, I was into fixing mode. I don't know what he's talking about. Yeah, I accept her, but she could do better. So I wanted to do this, and I went about doing it. It took me years to really recognize what he was saying to me, in that the time I took and the problems and the rift that was created in our marriage in my approach, and ignoring that he had said to accept Charlene, accept her as this is the person you love. If you could have married her then, you should be able to work with the person that you had at that point in time. And I didn't see that for many years. What about you, Charlie? What comes to mind as in the best way for you to speak to why should you work on you first? It almost sounds selfish.
Selfish is sometimes a good thing, depends on the situation. So let's think about being on an airplane. And no, I love to travel, so I'm always on a plane. But here's the oxymoron: I'm afraid of small spaces and I'm afraid of heights. But nevertheless, I'm on this airplane. And I remember one time I was on a flight with BA, British Airways, and the pilot decided, for whatever reason he thought was the best way to handle the situation, he just took off the engine and did a free fall 1,000 feet down and had the plane floating down. Everyone was scampering, all kind of thing. Can't remember if the air mask came out. But nevertheless, the analogy I'm trying to draw here is that when you're on the plane and something like that happens, air masks will drop. And the first thing they will tell you, in order to help the person next to you, if you're in a better place, is for you to put on your air mask first. Now, you might be saying, yeah, but that makes sense. But it's amazing we could apply that on an airplane and understand that, but we can't see the logic in our marriage. Now, if it is you don't put on this air mask first, where you could get the air, you could function, you could understand what's going on, then you could help the person next to you. So the same way in your marriage, when you put on this air mask and you fix yourself, then you'll be able to see clearly to guide and work with your spouse in making improvements in the marriage.
Yeah, and it's basically saying here, resist the temptation to try to fix your spouse. Not that you don't care about the issues you're seeing. And I know that's difficult, especially for men. You're seeing something you don't like, you don't appreciate, you think needs to be done. And I want to say, we're talking deep things here. We're talking character things. We're not saying your wife has some ketchup stain on her dress and you're not going to tell her as she's leaving the house. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking the real character flaws, the things that really affects you and you think that, this person needs to do this. Maybe their level of tidiness is not to the point that you think, well, I'm gonna beat this into submission, that this has to get fixed. Resist that urge. It says, and this is something that Charlene and I battle with, and I think for years, we judge ourselves less harshly than others. I would see Charlene putting on a little weight, but I walking around with a big belly, huh? And I wouldn't see it. I'll tell myself, you know what, that's some water weight there. That's not real fat, But a little tummy, that's real fat on Charlene. Charlene, I gotta help you lose that weight. You're getting fat, Charlene. And Charlene probably watching at me walking around the house with my married belly, and everyone saying that, but yet still I would justify my flaws. We would look at others and we would judge them harder. This is the one that hits me more than anything else. In some cases, we give others the benefit of the doubt compared to our spouse. I'm guilty of this. And Charlene had hit me many times for this. Someone else would do something and I would say, oh, they just had a rough day, that's the reason why they snap like. And Charlene would do the same thing. How dare you do that? I don't want to look at her because I know I'm guilty of this. I'm guilty of this. We would give somebody else the benefit of the doubt. And maybe you're not guilty of this. That's good. I mean, this is one thing less you have to work on. It's something I still have to work on. But my spouse should know better. And I'm a little bit more harsh on how I'm dealing with her. And she could recall that I wasn't doing the same thing with somebody else. They did the same thing and I was more understanding and caring and humble and so forth. What about you, Sean?
Well, I'm not sure exactly how to bring out this point here in terms of...
do you think that we judge ourselves less harshly?
Or you want me to stay neutral in this? Well, yeah. I think so. I think in many cases, we tend to see the flaws in others because it's easier to divert from focusing on ourselves. So if we focus on the person, then we could beat up on the person and then we don't have to deal with what's going on with us. And a lot of persons tend to do it. I mean, some persons might not be that way, but it's a good way to distract ourselves from the issue that's taking place with us. So we do it with people we interact with, we do it with our spouses. And it's something we need to learn that if you don't deal with your issues, you're going to create division with any relationship you have. And then when you end up lonely, then you're blaming the whole world for your discomfort when really and truly you're creating the problems there.
All right, for those that are joining us live, let us know how is the audio sounding. I'm always cautious of this because I remember going almost an entire live and there was no audio. So if you're hearing us, well, just let us know in the comments that the audio is working and everything, you're hearing us. Jesus gives one of the best counsel with dealing with the faults of others in Matthew chapter 7. And I want to just read this, a few texts from this. Charlene, just help me here.
Judge not that you be not judged.
All
Matthew
right.
7:1.
And verse 4
Or how can you say to your brother, let me remove the speck from your eye, and look, a plank is in your own eye?
and verse 5.
Hypocrite.
You
I'm sorry.
said that with such passion.
Well, with me and
It has an
English and right, yeah,
exclamation
the
mark there.
exclamation marks, you have to
Uh-huh.
say it like that. Hypocrite. First, remove the plank from your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. I can just imagine Jesus saying it. And
Wow.
point a finger too.
She said it with such passion. Thank you, Chaldine, for letting us know you're hearing us. You know, there's so much that comes out in this. And Jesus is saying, not that I don't want you to help your brother if you're seeing fault in him. And we're talking about your spouse here. But he's saying that if it is that you're seeing fault even in your brother, Jesus is saying, focus on you first. Take the time to see and ask yourself, is there anything I am doing that might be contributing to this? And we always have to put a precaution, or I would say a caution on what we're saying, especially as deals with abuse. Oh gosh, we're not saying if someone is verbally, if someone is physically abusing you, that you are now to fix your faults to avoid it. No, we want to always say, if you are a victim of verbal, physical, mental abuse, seek help. We want to always say so. When we say these, we do not want to speak to the extreme. We're talking about the circumstances within marriage that we all go through. We all have challenges. We're talking about the things, the character flaws, the challenges we face, or so forth. We are saying in those circumstances, even when you are seeing it in your spouse, we're saying focus on you first. Why?
Why?
I will tell you one of, and I'll list a few of them, right? But prepares you to be loving and humble in helping your spouse with their faults. When you have taken the time to see how is it that I am being impatient with dealing with my spouse, then you're able to see a different approach to how to deal with this, because you recognize the journey and the challenge it took you to deal with your temper. That means you'll be a little bit more understanding. You will approach the person with more love and humbleness. So the question is, Charlene, changing your marriage begins where?
With me.
It begins with me. It begins with you. It's very easy for you to focus on your spouse. It's very easy for you to say, I'm seeing you're doing this, you're the fault why our marriage is falling apart. That's a very easy thing to do. But at best, if I approach you like that, how will that make you feel? What would be the possible result if I come to you and say, Charlene, because you're not doing this, Charlene, you're not doing this is the reason why we're having all this problem. What are you like? How are you likely to respond?
Well, first I'll go into defense mode and attack, and then I'll start to list all your problems.
Wow. And I have a lot of problems.
And then I'll find more than how much you list about me, because I have to win.
All right. And then I will try to see if I could remember some other things that you're doing. And where does that go?
By the time we're done, we either, I don't know, thinking about divorce. We might go to some extreme because it's so bad. Because as far as we're concerned, the marriage is so bad. So now we're thinking about we might as well not be together.
And the reality is we all have things to fight about. So why is it that you want to focus on you? Number one, you might have the vision for your marriage. And sometimes you're not both at the same place as a respect to the vision for your marriage. There are times one person
Might reach before the other.
might reach before the other, or might be there. There might be one person sees the potential in your marriage that the other person probably don't see. For whatever reason, you may not both be at the same level. And that happens. That don't mean your marriage do not have the potential to be there. My goodness, I was the slow one in my mind. I was the tortoise. I could not see our potential, but Charlene saw it. In our case, Charlene is the one that had to be patient where I wasn't patient. I remember, if you go back to our live that we did, how the war room saved our marriage, you will see a little bit of our testimony where it was because of Charlene's prayers and her patience and her humbleness and her working on her that brought me along. And that might happen. One of you might see the vision and the potential for your marriage. Number two, Charlene, what about this one? How does this one appeal to you as to why you should focus on you?
You might be the one who can be humble. I mean, sometimes you really have to be at that place where you have to focus on how can I be the bigger person in order to get my spouse along, as Joshua mentioned. I had to look at myself and see, was there anything that I need to work on as well? And I spent time focusing on me as well in terms of while I was praying. Because I said, Lord, if there's anything in me that needs to be changed, help me to change it. Because it doesn't matter even if he changes, I still need to be better because we could all grow every day. So I figured I need to become better as well. But the better wasn't just because to make sure that I fix him. Better was to fix me as well, to make me a better person. So I saw more of God's love even in that action. And it brought me closer to God. And eventually Josh came along.
All right. Now, number three. I won't dwell on that because I could say a lot there. God may use you to reveal his will for your marriage. There are times that the struggle that you're going through in your marriage or your spouse might not be there, might be God's will for you to see what God is trying to bring you to that place. When everything is easy in our marriage, there are times that we could take it for granted and we could lose our way.
Mm-hmm.
You might be saying, and I thought of this even as I was doing this, but that's not fair. I mean, I'm the good one. I'm the one that's trying. Why is it that I have to be the one to go now and go the extra mile? Why can't he or her go the extra mile when it is that, they're the ones that have the problem? Life isn't fair. I don't know what a better way to tell you that. That's the reality. Life isn't fair, and you can't be God. The job of changing someone is not your responsibility. There's nothing you can do to change. There's nothing Charlene can do to change me. And the more she
And
tried to change
yeah,
me,
and he's difficult.
the more I will resist. The more I will think you're trying to be God. Who gives you that right to tell me what I should do? That is our human instinct.
Oh,
The
God told
more
me.
you ever you want a song to get popular, ban it. You want something to get most crave, tell people don't watch it. And what happens? Instantly, as you said, hey, there's this new video. It is so crazy. Do not watch it. What happens? What's the first thing you go and do?
Watch it.
You go and look to watch it. And the more you try to change someone and tell someone you need to do this, you need to do that, it works against our immediate psyche that says, that's not yours. You can't tell me to do that. That person have to come to that place for themselves, and that's God's work. So the quicker you recognize that and you start focus on you, it can do one of two things. Number one, while the person gets there, you are less focused on that and you're more focused on you getting to the place you need to be. Because here's what: your spouse can't make you happy if you aren't already a happy person. You have to get to that place that you find your place and your joy and your satisfaction. And it creates a certain freedom in the relationship that makes it easier for the person to recognize, man, I'm falling behind. Man, I am seeing something in my spouse that I want. I crave that. I crave that level of satisfaction that they have, that they're experiencing. Um, and they're not forcing me to do it. And that's the good part. They're not saying I have to do it. I would like you to do it. But when you get there, I'm going to be on the journey. I'm starting the journey. I want you to be on this journey, but I'm starting. And there's something about that. What about you, Charlene? Where do you think that is being selfish?
Once it is your focus on building a better you, which is me, that's the best time to be selfish in a marriage, because we've always assumed and listened to persons that say, if you do this, you'll fix your spouse. But we fail to realize that we've been getting bad advice. We need to worry about fixing us. We need to make sure we are better persons. Now, even if your spouse doesn't come along as they should, God will deal with that. But you need to figure out and make yourself in a better place and focus on that. Allow God to lead in the relationship. Put it all in God's hand. Many times we want to take up the battle and the mantle of where we need to fix this and we need to do this, but we're not asking God what is His will for our lives. And many times, if we spend talking to God, changes will take place on the horizontal because we're busy focused on making changes on the vertical.
All right. And if you have a comment, please remember to put it in the chat. We will take some time to answer any question or comment you might have. Number 4, it removes the pressure of someone trying to play God in a marriage. And I think
Yeah, you mentioned that.
I
Yeah.
mentioned that, right? Removing that pressure has an ability of creating an atmosphere that both party then is able to be selfless
Towards
towards
each
each
other.
other. You're recognizing that my spouse loves me, to care about me, but they also recognize I have a choice. And I respect you enough to live out that choice, but I'm going to be better. I'm going to be better, not just because of you, but because God expects me to be this version of myself. I believe in what we can be, but while you get there, I'm going to be on that journey. I'm going to be that type of person that God wants me to be. And you could see that being manifested in different things. I was sharing with Charlene, it's the desire that I have a desire to exercise. And I believe exercising together, it's a wonderful bonding experience and so forth. But exercise takes discipline. There's a lot of challenges and so forth. You could do one of two things. You can shame your spouse into exercising. You look at us, we're getting fat, you're loading weight, we need to exercise. I know why you're not getting up, you're being lazy and so forth. Or you could recognize that you also have a choice to exercise. And you could create an atmosphere that is welcoming. You can start to exercise and invite your spouse. And if they don't come, cool, maybe next time. But honey, I'm going for the walk. I've linked up with Susan and we normally walk, but I'd like you to come. But I'm walking today, and you go walking. You get there, and don't judge your spouse that he didn't come or she didn't come, but you start. And you've released that pressure. In the meantime, you're getting better, you're getting healthier, you're feeling better about yourself. You may find yourself where your spouse want to come along. Any other example for you, Charlotte, that you see that really in the benefit of you focusing on you and the atmosphere that creates for someone else to come along?
One of the things is like eating healthy. Is usually a challenge to do it by yourself. And you might be upset you're trying to force the person because, as you mentioned, exercise. So eating healthy usually works well together. So sometimes maybe one of the best way to do is encourage your spouse by, if you're eating healthy, you don't force them, but you could even cook a meal to even entice them to see that, it's not as bad as you think, this meal can actually taste well. And by even doing that, eventually come around and they started to change their eating habits as well, because now they're saying, hey, you starting to look a little good, and there's a little difference going on with you by eating healthy. So they'll join along on the ride, to eat healthy as well. So many times we spend so much time, as we say, trying to force and change our spouse, when all we need to do is just encourage them, show them the benefits. Sometimes people need a little encouragement, and we figure that they're supposed to automatically come along because they're a spouse. But we have different personalities, and it's two personalities in a relationship that still needs to work together. So we need the same love and care we would give to other persons. We need to at least apply that in our relationship, and be caring to our spouse, be patient with our spouse, be loving with our spouse.
All right. So as we look to wrap up, the idea is to, when you start focusing on you, it creates an environment where you're able to see the faults in your spouse less, and you start praising the good. Over time, it creates even a more healthy environment where even some of the faults you don't even see it anymore. There's a point in time in your marriage that you just have to let the little things slide. You could see it. You could allow it to bother you. You could allow it to create an atmosphere of where it's an argument, or it's not worth it. See some of the good that your spouse is doing and focus on that. You want them to fix some of these things, and you mention it in a loving and caring manner, but spend the time focusing on the good.
Mm-hmm.
And as you do that, and as you praise the good, people do things that they are rewarded for. If you reward someone for doing something that you like them to do, you find that they would feel more encouraged to do that more. And the more they focus on doing the things that they're going to be able to do to get a reward for, you would find inadvertently they start doing the other things that you don't like less. And instead of you fighting about it, spend more time praising the good in your spouse. Any closing thought for you, Charlene?
I want you to focus on this particular point. You want to fix your spouse? Fix you. When you fix you see changes in a spouse. I know some person said, oh, that will never happen in my marriage. But women, I'm going to say women, many times we spend so much time quarreling and fighting and cussing because we want change, and saying, oh, the man not changing. Work on you. You know the faults that you're married. I mean, really. You're really trying to tell me you didn't see half of those faults there? Work on you. Pray for him. Let God work on him. I'm not saying to tolerate abuse and tolerate insults and those things. I mean, you're going to set ground rules and set boundaries, but you're going to focus on you, encouraging and saying, this is what I would like, but I'm going to focus on me as well. So you need to at least hint what it is you would like changes. Don't assume that they will know what it is you want, but you also need to spend time focusing on you. Once you can establish these simple philosophies in your relationship, you'll be surprised to see the changes that take place. And of course, mention, praise your spouse. Tell your spouse a good thing. I love your cooking. I love that you work so hard. I love when you wash for me. Simple things, things. I love how you bought me the snack. I love, these different things. We don't spend enough time saying thank you and praises, and we take it for granted and assume that they're supposed to know, or why should I do it? But why not? Because if somebody else do it, you'll say thank you, or you'll praise them. So why not praise the person that you're closest with in the relationship?
All right, so I want to end where we started in the scripture text we had shared, which is taken from Matthew chapter 7. It says, judge not that you be not judged. And verse 4 and 5 says, or how can you say to your brother, let me remove the speck from your eye, and look, a plank is in your own eye. As Charlie says, hypocrite. First remove the plank from your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye.
Amen.
Let's take an opportunity to focus on us, see the vision that God have for our marriage, and let us live that out in us first, and pray for our spouse that God will do the work that is necessary for bringing them along Either way, it's a win-win for you. You're a better version of yourself. And in that, and the person also seeing that in you wants to even do more to please you as you please each other. Thank you so much for joining us. If you are here and you haven't already liked this video, please do so. Subscribe to our channel and click that notification bell. So when we post more videos like this or go live, you will be notified. All right. We will see you in the next one. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, and bye, everyone.